Have you ever sensed a silent war behind a sea of smiles? What if the deadliest enemies are the ones who celebrate your victories the loudest? Could it be that betrayal's sharpest blade is hidden inside applause? In today's world, envy doesn't announce itself with a sneer. It smiles, it claps, and it whispers behind the mask of friendship. Real survival demands more than resilience. It demands vision, the ability to pierce through illusions and recognize hidden threats before they corrode your peace. Armed with the timeless wisdom of Stoic philosophy, today we dive into 10 relentless ways to detect envy and deception with surgical precision. Master these, and you will no longer merely survive in a world of hidden daggers. You will thrive untouchable. Reflect even deeper. Life rarely shouts its warnings. Envy does not wear an enemy's mask, it wears a friend's. Stoicism teaches us to see what is hidden behind smiles, what lives in the silences between claps. Think back. How often has betrayal come not with knives, but with compliments? True wisdom isn't suspicious. It is relentlessly clear-eyed. Each time you sense a dissonance between words and reality, do not explain it away. Observe it. Let it reveal the truth. Every pause before answering, every subtle shift in gaze, carries messages louder than any speech. Real protection isn't built from confrontation. It is built from observation and elegant withdrawal. Choose your battles wisely, but choose your distances with ruthless clarity. Think carefully. True loyalty reveals itself not during your struggles, but when you succeed beyond expectation. Notice who grows quiet when your name is praised. Watch who changes the subject when your light shines too brightly. In every gathering, there are those whose applause is genuine, and those who clap simply to conceal resentment. A Stoic knows that wisdom is born from seeing the subtle shifts in energy that words cannot hide. Let your awareness sharpen quietly, not to accuse, but to protect, not to condemn, but to step aside with grace. That's the scary part. The most dangerous people aren't the loud critics, but the quiet pretenders clapping while secretly hoping you fail. Imagine you just got promoted. You're on cloud 9. But while everyone's cheering, you spot that one friend whose smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. The applause sounds right, but the vibe, it's off. Your instincts aren't lying. And if Stoicism has taught us anything, it's this: trust your reason over noise. In today's video, I'll reveal 10 powerful Stoic strategies to spot envy and deception before they sink their claws into your peace. These aren't just theories. They're timeless tools to help you protect your mind, your relationships, and your energy. If you're ready to build a life surrounded by honesty, not hidden agendas, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and drop a comment saying, "I'm ready for clarity." Let's dive in. Number 1, observe their actions. One of the core teachings of Stoic philosophy is this: don't trust words, trust actions. Words are easy. Anyone can say the right thing, especially those with something to gain. But actions, they don't lie. They reveal the truth people try to hide behind flattery, charm, or carefully chosen phrases. A Stoic doesn't get swayed by the performance. They observe patiently, watching for that quiet moment when behavior starts to contradict promises. That's when the mask slips. This lesson isn't just philosophical, it's practical protection. The people who envy you the most often pretend the hardest to support you. They'll clap when you succeed, but their eyes will betray the truth. They'll offer praise in public, yet plant seeds of doubt behind closed doors. They don't sabotage you outright. They just don't show up. They disappear when you need support, delay your progress, or withhold help when it matters most. Stoicism teaches us not to react with bitterness, but with clarity. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Don't obsess over what people claim to be. Watch what they do. This principle not only helps us see others more clearly, but also pushes us to be more honest with ourselves. If we expect consistency from others, we must live it too. The truth of someone's character is revealed when no one's watching. Do they keep their word? Do they show up when there's nothing to gain? That's where integrity lives. And that's what a Stoic learns to value. Not words, but proof. In a world full of performers, Your peace depends on your ability to recognize what's real. Trust actions. They always tell the truth. Number 2, evaluate their response to your success. In everyday life, few things reveal a person's true character more clearly than their reaction to your success. It's easy to smile when nothing is at stake, but when you start to rise, when your hard work begins to pay off, that's when the masks slip. Jealousy has a way of seeping through even the most polished words. You'll notice it in the subtle deflections, the passive-aggressive remarks, the way some people suddenly go quiet when it's your turn to shine. A Stoic doesn't look for approval and applause. They pay attention to the silence, to the tension that lingers beneath forced congratulations. Some people are deeply uncomfortable with the success of others because it reminds them of what they haven't done, or worse, what they've avoided. Your progress becomes their mirror, and instead of using that reflection as motivation, they choose resentment. It's not always loud. Jealousy can look like backhanded compliments or dismissive comments masked as concern. It can sound like, well, anyone could have done that, or you got lucky. And if you're not grounded, if you don't understand the Stoic principle of focusing only on what is within your control, their words can eat away at your confidence. The Stoics didn't waste time dissecting the motives of others. Marcus Aurelius taught that we should observe, not obsess. People will reveal themselves not with what they say, but with how they behave. When you are no longer struggling, a wise person learns to interpret those behaviors not as personal attacks, but as signs. Signs of where to place your trust. Signs of who deserves a seat at your table. So what's the solution when envy appears in your circle? You don't fight it. You don't feed it. You observe it. You accept it, and you adjust accordingly. Protect your energy not with confrontation, but with clarity. True allies will celebrate your growth without insecurity. The rest let them go, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Stoicism teaches that we don't control others' emotions, but we can control who we invite into our lives. In the end, your success is not just a milestone. It's a test. It reveals more than effort and progress. It shows you who's walking beside you and who's secretly hoping you stumble. Choose your company wisely. Let your circle reflect your peace, not their envy. Number 3, notice how they interact with those who can't benefit them. One of the most revealing tests of character, according to Stoic philosophy, is how a person treats those who have nothing to offer in return. Respect, when it's real, doesn't shift with power or status. A noble soul doesn't reserve kindness for the influential or successful. They extend it to everyone, especially the overlooked and the powerless. The Stoics believe that every human being carries inherent value, no matter their job, title, wealth, or influence. And the way we treat those below us, if we even believe in such a concept, says more about us than any public accomplishment ever could. It's easy to act respectful when someone is watching. It's easy to smile at your boss or flatter someone who can open doors for you. But the true test happens in the quiet, uncelebrated moments. I once noticed a client at a corporate event speak with glowing charm to the CEO, then minutes later snap at a young intern who spilled coffee. That contrast didn't just disturb me, it exposed something deeper. This person respected power, not people. And that kind of character, as the Stoics would say, is hollow. Jealous and deceitful individuals often play this game. They're warm and welcoming when it benefits them, but the moment they're around someone they consider beneath them, the mask slips. They become dismissive, rude, or simply indifferent. Stoicism warns us to pay attention to these subtle shifts because how someone treats the powerless is where the truth lives. These people don't value dignity. They value advantage. And when you watch closely, you'll begin to notice this behavior more often than you'd like. This isn't just about others, though. It's about us. The Stoic path demands we turn that lens inward, too. How do you speak to a stranger at the checkout counter? Do you give the same warmth to a janitor as you do to your manager? If the answer isn't a confident yes, it's time to reflect. Because Stoicism isn't just about controlling emotions or embracing hardship. It's about living with integrity in every interaction. As Seneca wisely said, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. If you truly want to understand someone's soul, Don't watch how they treat the powerful, watch how they treat the powerless. That's where real character reveals itself. And that's the kind of awareness Stoicism urges us to practice, not just to protect ourselves from deceit, but to become better, wiser human beings. Number 4, distinguish between praise and flattery. Excessive flattery is one of those quiet dangers that often disguises itself as kindness. It doesn't raise red flags at first. In fact, it feels good, comforting even. But Stoic philosophy teaches us not to be swayed by surface-level emotions. What feels good isn't always what is good. Compliments, when overdone or out of place, often have less to do with your character and more to do with someone else's intentions. And when you fall for it blindly, it can cost you. Years ago, I was working with a business partner. We'll call him Rick. We had met through mutual contacts, both of us in our late 40s at the time, and he came across as sharp, articulate, and generous with praise. At every meeting, Rick would say things like, "You're the glue holding this operation together," or, "I don't know how you manage it all with such ease." He'd compliment my instincts, my leadership, even the way I handled small talk with clients. I wasn't immune to it. After decades of grinding, of doing the hard work without much applause, those words hit a soft spot. I started to trust him more than I should have. What I didn't notice until it was too late was that behind all those compliments, Rick wasn't pulling his weight. He was charming our clients while I did the heavy lifting. He was subtly shifting credit to himself in conversations I wasn't part of. And he was quietly positioning himself to take over the one deal that mattered most to both of us. When it all unraveled, I didn't feel betrayed as much as I felt foolish. Foolish for letting flattery distract me from the truth. Foolish for ignoring the one thing Stoicism had always taught me. Character is revealed in actions, not words. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." That quote stung more after the fact, because the signs were there: missed deadlines, vague answers, too much talking and not enough doing. But I ignored them. I wanted to believe in the nice words more than I wanted to look at the facts. That experience taught me that excessive praise is not always a compliment. It's sometimes a smoke screen. Jealous or opportunistic people don't always show up with a scowl. Sometimes they show up smiling, calling you brilliant, hoping you'll be too busy enjoying the applause to notice the knife being sharpened behind your back. So be kind, yes, but be watchful. When someone flatters you beyond reason, slow down. Listen, observe. Ask yourself, does this person support me when no one is watching? Do their actions align with their words? Stoic wisdom teaches us to stay grounded, to find peace in inner validation, not in applause. Because when the praise fades and the truth emerges, you'll want to be standing on something real. Number 5, monitor consistency. Here's an interesting fact. Studies in behavioral psychology have shown that people who consistently act in alignment with their values, regardless of the situation, are perceived as more trustworthy and emotionally stable. Not the loudest in the room, not the most charming, just consistent. And thousands of years before these studies, Stoic philosophers were already teaching that very principle. Judge a person not by what they say, but by what they do, especially when it's inconvenient for them. When evaluating someone's character, this idea becomes essential. Stoicism invites us to observe quietly, to look beyond surface appearances, and to examine whether a person's actions match their words across different moments in life. Because inconsistency is rarely accidental. It's a pattern, and it often points to deeper traits like jealousy, insecurity, or self-interest disguised as virtue. I remember someone I once trusted in a professional setting. He was always vocal about fairness, about being a team player, but when a high-value client arrived, his tone shifted. He went from collaborative to competitive, from supportive to territorial. That shift wasn't just ambition, it was a warning. The man who spoke of loyalty and values could not uphold them when the stakes were high. And that inconsistency, though subtle at first, eventually cost us both the partnership. This is what Stoic wisdom prepares us for. Not dramatic betrayals, but the slow, quiet exposure of someone's true character through repeated behavior. Marcus Aurelius wrote, If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change. But people driven by envy or deceit won't do that. They'll shapeshift depending on who they're with or what they need. They'll praise you when you're useful, then vanish, or worse, sabotage you when you're not. So how do you protect yourself? You observe without rushing to judgment, without making accusations. Just watch. Pay attention to how someone treats people who can't help them. Notice if their principles collapse under pressure. See if they hold the same values when no one's watching. Over time, those observations will tell you everything. Consistency in action is one of the clearest indicators of a sincere, grounded person. And when you start noticing how rare it truly is, you'll stop being surprised when people reveal themselves. You'll just be ready. That's Stoicism in motion. Calm, clear, and always one step ahead of the storm. Number 6, observe their attitude when criticized. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone." This quote captures the essence of what it means to be both wise and sincere. A Stoic doesn't see criticism as a personal attack, but as an opportunity to grow. When your goal is truth, not ego, not appearances, then correction becomes a tool, not a threat. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Most people are not that open, especially those driven by jealousy or insecurity. When confronted with criticism, they don't reflect, they retaliate. They deflect the blame, discredit the critic, or get defensive. Their reaction isn't about protecting truth, it's about protecting a fragile self-image. And often this is exactly where jealousy hides behind loud excuses, sharp comebacks, or a forced smile that masks their unwillingness to grow. Stoicism teaches us that behavior under pressure reveals who someone truly is. A person who can accept feedback without losing their composure is someone rooted in strength, but one who erupts, shuts down, or takes offense at the slightest suggestion. That's someone who fears being seen too clearly. And this fear often leads to deceit, manipulation, and an inability to form genuine relationships. So how do you tell the difference between sincere and jealous individuals? Watch how they handle being corrected. Do they reflect and grow or resist and lash out? Do they listen with humility or argue to protect their pride? These moments are more telling than any words they might say. At the same time, turn the mirror inward. Ask yourself, how do I respond to criticism? Do I welcome it as a chance to improve, or do I rush to defend myself? Do I seek truth even when it stings or just validation? Your answers reveal how much of your identity is built on real self-awareness versus illusion. In the Stoic tradition, truth is never the enemy. What harms us isn't being wrong, it's refusing to admit it. And in a world where pride is often louder than wisdom, learning to embrace criticism with calm, honest reflection is one of the strongest, rarest forms of self-mastery you can develop. Number 7, attentively notice unintentional comparisons. In daily life, we're often hit with comparisons that seem casual on the surface, but carry something heavier underneath. They come cloaked in harmless phrases dressed up as conversation, but they can quietly reveal envy, insecurity, and deceit. Stoic philosophy teaches us not to take these moments at face value, but to listen with awareness. When someone habitually compares you to others, it's not really about you. It's about what's stirring inside them. Jealousy rarely announces itself directly. It slips through in subtle comparisons that aim to shrink your progress just enough to make the other person feel less inadequate. If you've ever shared something you're proud of, a personal achievement, a breakthrough, even a simple moment of joy, and someone responds with, "That's nice, but have you seen what Mark is doing lately?" Then you felt it. That wasn't encouragement. It was a disguised attempt to pull you back down to where they feel safe. This behavior often comes from individuals who haven't made peace with their own path. The constant comparison is a defense mechanism, a way to protect a fragile ego by projecting insecurity onto someone else. And here's the danger. Over time, these subtle jabs, if internalized, can chip away at your self-worth. You begin to question your progress even when you've worked hard and stayed true to your values. That is precisely what Stoicism helps us resist. Stoic philosophy teaches us that these comparisons are external judgments, noise that should never dictate our inner equilibrium. What others say, especially when it's rooted in jealousy or insecurity, is outside our control. What is within our control is how we respond. And the wise response is not to defend, argue, or retaliate, but to remain grounded in self-knowledge. As Epictetus taught, we must distinguish between what belongs to us, our actions, our beliefs, and what belongs to others, their opinions, their emotions. It's worth reflecting on who in your life frequently makes these comparisons. Are they truly rooting for you, or are they quietly trying to compete with you, even when there's nothing to compete for? Genuine people won't pit you against others. They'll celebrate your growth for what it is, without measuring it against anyone else. In the end, the Stoic path isn't about being unaffected by the world. It's about being undisturbed by what doesn't deserve to touch your peace. And nothing deserves that less than the shallow opinions of those still wrestling with their own unhealed envy. Number 8, pay attention to their reactions to personal failures. Adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. This quote, often attributed to James Lane Allen, echoes a timeless truth that aligns perfectly with Stoic philosophy. In the face of failure, people don't become someone new. They become who they've always been underneath the surface. I once worked alongside a man who on the outside seemed unshakable, confident, polished, full of energy. He was well-liked in meetings, always had the right thing to say, and walked with the air of someone who had it all figured out. But when a major project collapsed under his lead, something changed. Instead of owning the mistake, he turned cold. He began blaming junior staff, rewriting timelines, even suggesting that others hadn't followed his vision. He crafted a narrative that made him the misunderstood genius and everyone else the problem. It wasn't just disappointing, it was revealing. That experience taught me what Stoicism has always preached. Failure is one of life's most honest mirrors. Truly strong individuals meet failure with humility. They may not enjoy it, no one does, but they accept it, reflect on it, and allow it to shape them into something better. They don't lash out, they don't hide behind blame. They own their part, learn, and move forward. These are the people who earn quiet respect not for being perfect, but for being real. In contrast, those driven by jealousy or deceit see failure as a threat to their ego. And rather than face it, they scramble to protect the illusion of competence. They shift blame, point fingers, rewrite the story to make themselves the victim or the hero, anything but the one who stumbled. This reaction doesn't come from strength. It comes from deep insecurity and fear of being seen too clearly. Stoicism teaches us that failure, like pain or loss, is not something to run from. It's something to meet with steadiness. As Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." When someone fails, watch closely. Do they reflect or deflect? Do they learn or hide? Their response will tell you more about their character than any success ever could. Take a moment to consider the people around you. How do they respond when things go wrong? More importantly, how do you respond? Stoicism calls us not only to observe others, but to hold ourselves to the same quiet standard. Face failure with courage. Accept it with grace and let it make you stronger, not smaller. Number 9, evaluate how they share personal information. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, and that single line reveals a deep Stoic truth. How a person thinks, how they speak, how they carry themselves eventually becomes who they are. You don't need to look far to see this in daily life. Just listen. The way someone talks about their own life, their successes and failures, their friends or enemies, it paints a vivid portrait of what's truly happening beneath the surface. A sincere person often speaks with humility. They don't inflate their achievements or seek applause for every small win. Instead, they emphasize the lessons they've learned, the journey they're still on, and even the ways they've stumbled along the path. There's no need for embellishment because truth, to the Stoic mind, is already rich with value. You'll notice that truly grounded individuals don't need to dominate conversations or be the smartest voice in the room. They're honest about their progress because they've made peace with imperfection. On the other hand, deceitful or jealous people have a different tone altogether. They often exaggerate their accomplishments, emphasizing minor details to make themselves seem more capable than they are. But where it becomes most obvious is when they speak about failure, because they rarely do. And when they do, it's never their fault. They'll blame the team, the timing, the market, the weather, anything but their own decisions. This deflection is a powerful sign of insecurity. Stoicism teaches us that owning our failures is not weakness, it's strength. To take responsibility, even quietly, is to affirm our inner resilience. And beware of how they speak about others. Someone who constantly shares private information, gossips, or subtly tears people down is often revealing more about their own brokenness than anyone else's flaws. Jealousy, when left unchecked, corrodes a person's mind and leaks through their words. It often shows up in comparisons, in unnecessary criticisms, or in the quiet enjoyment of someone else's misfortune. That kind of speech isn't just unkind, it's toxic. The Stoic approach isn't to react with anger or judgment, but to observe and protect your peace. You can't control what others say, but you can choose how much space their words take up in your life. Learn to listen not just to what is being said, but to what is being revealed. That's how you guard your soul from being dyed by someone else's poison. Pause and reflect. Envy isn't loud. It's calculated. It moves quietly through empty congratulations and forced laughter. Stoicism teaches us not to react in haste, but to observe deeply. Watch the cracks beneath polished surfaces. The real test is not how people behave when you fail, but how they behave when you rise. In every conversation, in every glance, lies a truth waiting for a patient mind to see. Strength isn't in confronting every slight. Strength is in perceiving without losing composure, discerning without losing compassion, and stepping away without ever making noise. Reflect even deeper. Life rarely shouts its warnings. Envy does not wear an enemy's mask, it wears a friend's. Stoicism teaches us to see what is hidden behind smiles, what lives in the silences between claps. Think back. How often has betrayal come not with knives, but with compliments? True wisdom isn't suspicious. It is relentlessly clear-eyed. Each time you sense a dissonance between words and reality, do not explain it away. Observe it. Let it reveal the truth. Every pause before answering, every subtle shift in gaze, carries messages louder than any speech. Real protection isn't built from confrontation. It is built from observation and elegant withdrawal. Choose your battles wisely, but choose your distances with ruthless clarity. Think carefully. True loyalty reveals itself not during your struggles, but when you succeed beyond expectation. Notice who grows quiet when your name is praised. Watch who changes the subject when your light shines too brightly. In every gathering, there are those whose applause is genuine, and those who clap simply to conceal resentment. A Stoic knows that wisdom is born from seeing the subtle shifts in energy that words cannot hide. Let your awareness sharpen quietly, not to accuse, but to protect, not to condemn, but to step aside with grace. Number 10, listen to your inner voice. Here's an interesting fact. Neuroscientists have found that our gut feelings, what we often call intuition, stem from the brain's ability to quickly process subtle cues in our environment, even before we're consciously aware of them. This means that uneasy feeling you sometimes get around someone isn't irrational. It's your subconscious picking up on inconsistencies in behavior, tone, or body language. And in the lens of Stoic philosophy, this instinct isn't something to ignore. It's a tool, one that helps you stay aware and aligned with reality. Have you ever found yourself feeling oddly uncomfortable around someone who always seems friendly, helpful, even generous on the surface? No harsh words, no obvious offense, just a lingering sense that something doesn't quite match. That dissonance between how someone acts and how you feel is not paranoia. It's your internal compass recognizing a lack of harmony between words and actions. Stoicism teaches us to observe reality as it is, not as it pretends to be, and that includes reading between the lines of social interaction. People driven by jealousy or deceit are rarely overt. They often wear the mask of concern, of support, even of admiration, but underneath their behavior is laced with subtle competition, insincere compliments, unnecessary comparisons, and passive criticisms. These contradictions are not always loud, but they leave behind a trail of emotional confusion. Your instinct in those moments becomes your first line of defense, a quiet signal that says, "Pay attention." Stoic philosophy urges balance. While we are taught to live by reason, we are also reminded to stay alert. The goal isn't to jump to conclusions or become distrustful. It's to observe patterns, to ask questions, and to align your perception with reality. If someone's presence repeatedly causes discomfort, even without obvious wrongdoing, it's worth examining. Ask yourself whether their words match their intentions. Consider whether their presence builds you up or slowly wears you down. The Stoic approach isn't to react with anger or judgment, but to observe and protect your peace. You can't control what others say, but you can choose how much space their words take up in your life. Learn to listen not just to what is being said, but to what is being revealed. That's how you guard your soul from being dyed by someone else's poison. So what did we learn today? That envy doesn't always wear a villain's cape, and deception doesn't always show up shouting. Sometimes they come disguised as compliments, concern, or even friendship. But now you know better. With Stoic wisdom as your guide, you've got the tools to see through the fog, spot the fakes, and protect your peace like the calm warrior you are. Listen, life is short and your energy is precious. Don't waste it on people who smile in your face, but secretly hope you fail. Choose relationships that nourish your spirit, not ones that drain it dry. And the best part, you don't have to fight. You just have to notice. If this video helped you, do me a favor. Click like, hit that subscribe button, and ring the bell so you won't miss the next dose of Stoic sanity. Share this with someone you love, because let's be honest, we all know someone who needs this message. And here's your challenge. Try out just one of the 10 methods we explored today. Then come back and comment, "I did it." I'll be right here, cheering you on. Stay strong, stay wise, and let Stoicism light the path. Pause and reflect. Envy isn't loud. It's calculated. It moves quietly through empty congratulations and forced laughter. Stoicism teaches us not to react in haste, but to observe deeply. Watch the cracks beneath polished surfaces. The real test is not how people behave when you fail, but how they behave when you rise. In every conversation, in every glance, lies a truth waiting for a patient mind to see. Strength isn't in confronting every slight. Strength is in perceiving without losing composure, discerning without losing compassion, and stepping away without ever making noise. Reflect even deeper. Life rarely shouts its warnings. Envy does not wear an enemy's mask, it wears a friend's. Stoicism teaches us to see what is hidden behind smiles, what lives in the silences between claps. Think back. How often has betrayal come not with knives, but with compliments? True wisdom isn't suspicious. It is relentlessly clear-eyed. Each time you sense a dissonance between words and reality, do not explain it away. Observe it. Let it reveal the truth. Every pause before answering, every subtle shift in gaze, carries messages louder than any speech. Real protection isn't built from confrontation. It is built from observation and elegant withdrawal. Choose your battles wisely, but choose your distances with ruthless clarity. Think carefully. True loyalty reveals itself not during your struggles, but when you succeed beyond expectation. Notice who grows quiet when your name is praised. Watch who changes the subject when your light shines too brightly. In every gathering, there are those whose applause is genuine, and those who clap simply to conceal resentment. A Stoic knows that wisdom is born from seeing the subtle shifts in energy that words cannot hide. Let your awareness sharpen quietly, not to accuse, but to protect, not to condemn, but to step aside with grace. As we've seen, the true threats to your peace are rarely the ones shouting their intentions. They are the smiling shadows, the polite pretenders, the ones whose envy drips slowly and silently into your life. But now you are no longer blind to them. Stoicism teaches us that clarity is strength and calm discernment is power. You don't need rage to protect yourself. You need vigilance sharpened by experience. From this day forward, choose your company like a warrior chooses his allies, not by how loudly they cheer, but by how quietly they remain loyal when the lights go out. Trust actions, trust patterns, trust your instincts. Your peace is sacred. Guard it without apology. Live wisely, live clearly, and above all, live free.